what is your positive approach to care, and how can people best support a person living with dementia?
So one of the things that we want to do is look at ourselves in the mirror when we have somebody in our world that is developing dementia, whether it's me, if I'm looking at myself, or I'm looking at the person that I want to support. I've got to look at myself first and go, what am I good at? What do I struggle with already? Because when I enter this relationship of support or learning to live with my dementia, knowing what my strengths are, knowing what I have skill at, knowing what I'm still able to do is going to be really important, because that means that's what we want to sustain. Yeah. Recognizing what I'm not good at, what I'm struggling with, tells me where I might need some support. And if I'm the carer, it could mean I need to get somebody else in here, because when it comes to spending time with my mom, I mean, we've always had trouble trying to reach a place where we were liking each other when it comes to cooking or driving or managing the house. And if that's the case, I really am going to need support there. And I don't want to get into a confrontational relationship. But at the same time, mom's like, well, I'm fine. I don't need anybody. We've got to learn the art of saying, oh, so you're not feeling like you need somebody. I hear you. This is really hard to adjust. You know, Mom, here's what I'm wondering. If at some point in the future you do need somebody, I want to have somebody in mind that you would be okay with. So while you're able, I'd like us to have some people come in, a couple different people come in, and you let me know who might be a match for you. Because I want you to be comfortable with somebody if you needed someone. And I have no idea who would make you okay and who would not.
Right. Oh, that's such a wonderful approach. Yeah, you're reframing that in a really a positive way. It's not confrontational. It's not putting them down. It's not saying you need this and telling them what they have to do. You're inviting them in a really open, loving way into this conversation, and you want their input.
Yeah, I need to know what would work for you, because you've made me your healthcare power of attorney. And frankly, I don't know who would be a good match for you. Yeah. And I'd like us to try it out for a week or so to see if you get tired of them or if you're okay with them. Because what I know is if someone is starting to live with the changes that are going on, it will take them a while to get used to somebody. It will take them a while to accept that this is where we're headed. And if I take baby bites, and I encourage us to have little progress, and after a week I say, so, she's really liking this. How's it working for you?
Yeah.
Because, you went out a couple times, you did this, you did that. How did it feel? I mean, could we try it again for another week? Because, you might need it for longer than we thought. We don't know. Ooh, could you do me a big favor while you guys were out? Could you go by the grocery store? I have a list. And now I'm starting to realize, how can I add another person into our world so that it's going to help both of us, because otherwise I could get overwhelmed by this.
Oh, easily. Yeah. The caregiver, if you are trying to be a full-time caregiver to a person living with dementia or any kind of physical or cognitive impairment, your chances of needing care sooner than later is very high. So not only do we want to protect the life of the person living with dementia, but we want to protect you, the caregiver. Are you seeing, Teepa, when you're working with families, are most families hiring out and asking for, maybe it's part-time caregiving or maybe it's full-time caregiving? What do you typically see? Do you see a combination of family and part-time?
I so wish families would start this sooner. Because often by the time they realize how deep they're in and they need help, the person who's living with dementia has gotten used to the family and they don't want the other person. So there are some families who recognize early on, we've got to figure out how to build in extra help to start with. But many families are trying to conserve resources. And so they think, what I'll do is we'll wait until she's more impaired and then we'll bring people in. But the problem is by then that person who's living with dementia frequently doesn't want the other people. They're really scared about them being there. They might even have a dementia like Lewy body or vascular that makes it feel scary that somebody's entering my space and is present and I don't know who they are. Or if I have frontal temporal, I might not be tolerant of somebody who's doing it differently than the way I like it done. Or, by mid-state Alzheimer's, I may not remember that I've agreed to have somebody in when it got to like this. So families really, I wish families were better at recognizing we're going to need help. Let's start early bringing in other people. And instead, all too often, they wait until they're stressed out completely or overwhelmed or frustrated or it's not working. And that's when they're more interested. And so the sooner we can get the idea of build a team, keep it simple, keep it small. Part-time is great to start with. But start off introducing different people into the mix before we get too far along.
Great point. I mean, what a key takeaway there, Teepa, is we want to be proactive. You know, if let's say you get that diagnosis, what do? You know, it's probably early on at that point, hopefully. And so, or not, maybe, it's not early on with
only 20%, only about 20% of folks will get early state diagnosis. Mid-state diagnosis is 70% of people right at this moment in time. That's really problematic.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That is. So with those 70% then, Teepa, how many of those do you think are willing to then bring in an outside person outside of the family? Do you think it's small because they're so far along? Yeah.
Yeah. And, and yet there's this sense of, well, why can't you do it? Well, I just called you once. And you want to say, no, Mom, you didn't call me once. You called me 17 times and I'm trying to get work done. I told you I'll be over at noon. And guess what? I don't hear in my own voice.
What's that?
That level of distress that I communicate to my mom.
Oh, sure.
And so what happens is I am so stressed out already because 17 phone calls at work in the morning. And I thought, every time she calls, I answer, but then she can't remember what I said because the fact is she wants somebody with her. But now guess who it's going to be? Me. And it's like, I can't. And so, early on, if we can get something going on, but in 70% of families, they don't even know what they're dealing with. They just think it's she's getting older. She's getting a little more paranoid about stuff. She's having a hard time, but that's just normal. And it's like, maybe missed our cues.